Julie's on here.
Oh, Julie.
Micah
Hey,
Myers
Julie.
is on here.
Oh,
Hello.
okay,
Hello.
Hello,
good.
everybody.
Okay, hi.
We're hoping that you're going to bring all of this good news back.
Yes,
Yeah,
really. I
definitely.
need all the help I can get, honey. Way I look at it.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe Lee wanted to kick us off, and then I will go next.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to welcome everyone to today's call, today's meeting. We're going to be learning a lot today. So very happy to have Jeffrey on board to kind of show us a little bit about Google Classroom, hopefully help you guys on your end. We want to thank you again for coming out today. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
So much. So I know we're going to be spending a very brief amount of time together today, barely a class period. So I'll make my introduction short and sweet. My name is Jeffrey. As far as my educational career, I hail from the middle school classroom. So I spent several years as the visual arts teacher for middle school. So I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th. And after doing that for several years, I then moved into co-teaching. So I decided to try my hand out at core, doing English, science, math, and social studies. And from there, I then moved into more of a teacher of teachers role where I started helping schools, brick and mortar schools, become more blended. And Google Classroom was definitely a big part of this. And this was years ago. This was long before, what brings us here together today. And then the kind of the penultimate of that journey was spending several years in an online school. So completely K-12 digital. And now here we are. So I definitely wanted to get a sense for who's in the house. Basically, are we elementary? Are we middle school? Are we specials? Are we sped? You're welcome to add that into chat, or if you want to come off of mute, I definitely don't mind hearing what you hail from.
I guess I'll start first.
Perfect.
I work at the High State School for the Blind, and my name is Cindy Swisher. I'm a teacher aide. I teach cooking and cleaning to blind and visually impaired students, 7th through 12th.
Okay, fantastic. So when we talk specials, you're definitely on the same wavelength that I am.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right, sir.
Thank you. I'm starting to see some additional answers rolling into chat.
I see that. Yeah.
K-12 art. There we go. That's right up my alley. Got 7th grade math. I try not to butcher your subject too much. I'm using you as my guinea pig today. So, and then I had to pick something. So administration, awesome. Middle, high school, very cool. So you're welcome to continue flowing that into chat. I would love to continue hearing from you. While you are not directly addressing me, I'm going to go ahead and start grabbing out. There we go. Grabbing our mute buttons. It's just to ensure that you don't have any feedback and my voice doesn't get drowned out. I am a loudspeaker. I do have a theater background, but technology is what it is. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is we need to get you kick-started in having a Google Classroom. So basically, Google Classroom is a very simplified LMS. Very simplified. So if you're familiar with like Schoology or Brightspace, you already know at least a little about what's in the LMS world. For Google Classroom, it is far simpler, far more straightforward, and it's going to get you kick-started in working with your students and getting assignments out there and grades and all the things that we have to do regardless of where we are. So I am going to go ahead and bam, get this into chat. For those that are not already on their Google homepage, you are more than welcome to join me here. This is just as much of a hands-on experience as it is a demo. I will be moving at a pace that is probably a little faster than I would for a traditional class because I've got some ground to cover and I only got an hour. We know how that feels, right, class? But I highly encourage you to try some of the things out that I'm talking about, and I will attempt to continue including those links in chat so that you are fully fresh with resources just to try out and demo with me. Got preschool in the house and 6th grade science, of course. Preschool aid and 6th grade science. It's a match made in heaven. See, I know I'm in a room of real teachers because that's real. So we need to find Google Classroom. That's the first gag. So you've logged into your account and we're going to go to this waffle or this app launcher that always appears in the top right-hand corner of the main Google website, google.com. You may not immediately see it. It kind of depends. But if you continue scrolling around, you're going to eventually find that Classroom is the Blackboard, one of the apps that you have access to. So we're going to go ahead and give that a click. See, I told you math was going to be the subject I'm butchering today, just for the sake of argument, for the sake of discussion. Welcome to the home page. Now, for those of you that have already found Google Classroom and have begun work here, you probably have a whole smorgasbord of classes, maybe from the previous school year as well as the current school year. For those that have never been here before, you probably were just greeted by a helper that said, hey, would you like to join a class or create a class? You can go ahead and skip over the helpers for now. They like to reemerge and reappear from time to time. I'm going to be helping you today. So we need to create a brand new class and kind of walk through what that looks like. And then we'll talk about how that syncs up with all the other classes that you're teaching. So up in the top right-hand corner, you are going to notice that there is a plus, a little plus mark, a little plus. Let's go ahead and give that a click. And you get one of two options. You can join a class or you can create a class. Now, depending on the administration privileges, we're going to create a class. And the various settings by your school district, you may see slightly different options, meaning some of them may be grayed out or auto-checked. That's perfectly fine. Mine is as wide open as it gets. It only gets more condensed from there. And if I run into a button that's grayed out for you, let me know in chat, and we can add that to the checklist of things we'll want to make sure we ask your IT team the next time you have a chat with them. So it's going to say, hey, welcome. Did you read this? And I'm going to be like, yes, of course I did. For the umpteenth time. And now we need to create a class. So what class are you going to be teaching? Now, I know one of the first questions is probably going to pop into some of your heads because we've got some, it sounds like some co-teachers in the house. Only one of you needs to actually create the classroom. I will show you how to add a second teacher into a pre-existing class. So if you're on the call with somebody who is going to be co-teaching with you, for our purposes, I would create a class just so you have to practice at doing it. But don't worry, only one of you has to create the real class, and then we can add that teacher later. So what is this going to be? What are we going to name our class? Well, I've already started kind of a theme here, so I'm going to keep it going, but you are welcome to name your classes however you would like. Maybe it's Miss Harmon's Sunshine and Daisy's preschoolers, or maybe it's just the nitty-gritty Psych 101 high school, because we're not allowed to have fun once the students get older. Yeah, you can see middle school, right? I straddle both worlds. So going to the section, for me, I'm going to be using this to fill out what my grade level is. You can use this again however you see fit. So if we're part of the math department, maybe this could actually be the domain of math that you wish to address. However you wish. I am going to refill out that we are part of math. I get a couple of suggestions. Some of you may see suggestions while you're typing, others may not. That is perfectly fine. And I find this particular question delightful because I'm going to type virtual. What's my room this year? It's going to be a virtual classroom. I know some of us may be in blended situations, others may be in brick and mortar, and this is going to be a supplement. But for whatever the situation may be, this is going to be just fine. So now I have filled out the primary information. So let's go ahead and create that room. Click Create. If at all, if you ever have a question, please feel free to type that into chat. I will be here answering questions as I see them appear. Also, Lee's in chat. He will be helping us to answer questions. Please do not feel like we are on a roller coaster that you cannot slow down. You are more than welcome to ask me whatever you would like. Ta-da! We're in class. Well, look at this. So let's go ahead and get our bearings. Let's look and see what's around here, and then I'm going to show you how to start adding things. So right up here at the top, these are the primary places that you are going to get to visit in class as the teacher. And don't worry, we'll see this from the student side a little later. But the stream, for those of us that are familiar with like Facebook and Twitter, like, come on, in chat, have you ever used a service that has a stream of information? YouTube, Facebook, chat? You're welcome just to type yes or a smiley face. Like, come on. We've seen streams, right? I hope so, because that's what this is. Yeah, we've got some streams in there. So this is going to be our primary hub of where we're going to be adding a lot of information and adding stuff. So let's go ahead and add our very first thing. We're going to share something with the class. So I'm just going to click right there. This is a way for, think of it as an announcement. I am addressing the class and I want to tell them something. That is what this is. I'm saying, all right, students, hello, listen, let's go ahead and talk about something important because, you know, that's how they see us. And I'm going to just type a very simple message. Welcome back for a brand new school year. This could also be leading into, take a look at our first resource. So my very first thing, right? And now I'm like, oh, well, I want to add a resource. Okay, well, I could go to add. And this is going to be the classic question you receive every single time you want to add anything to anything. Add it to an assignment, add it to a quiz, adding it to an announcement. These are your options. You'll be adding something from Google Drive. You'll be adding a link from the interweb somewhere. You will be adding a file of some kind, or you are going to be linking directly to YouTube, because for those that know, YouTube and Google are part of the same house. So they have very nice integration. This is really awesome. So for the sake of argument, I'm just going to go ahead and add from Google Drive. And it's going to go to my drive. I've populated this account with a couple of things. You are more than welcome to pick whatever you would like, but I'm just going to pick, oh, let's try that one. The screenshot one, perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert. And there it is, it's added. I could continue adding as many resources as I want, but remember, this is an announcement. So this is not the way that we assign work. This is just us talking to the room. So bear that in mind. Now, before we click post, I do need to point out something. We made a class pretty quick. The expectation would be before your students return, or as they're returning, you created a class for each section of students that you're going to teach. And those would already be empty shells ready to be filled. What's really cool is when you are posting anything, an announcement, an assignment, anything, you are in a particular class. So I'm currently standing in period 3, but I'm also simultaneously standing in every other section that I teach. And I can select which sections see the post that I've created. Like, hands down, that makes it so much easier. So I'm going to go ahead and select that all of period 2 and all of period 3 are going to see this same announcement. Okay? Now, if students were already enrolled, I could even specify which students see the announcement. So for any of you that do any kind of integration work, IEP work, pullouts, small group, you already see the bonus to that little grayed out button, but currently no one's in the class. So I'm gonna go ahead and click post. Now I could decide to save it, but I'm gonna go ahead and post. Ta-da! There it is. It's ready to rock and roll. And now my class and I can have commentary and reply and discussion around whatever it is that I posted. Don't worry, you can moderate that. You can reduce what they're allowed to add, at least a little bit. And we'll talk about special settings here in just a moment. Now, before we add anything else, let's take a look around what else we see. As more work is added, as more assignments are coming due in your class, this area, the upcoming, is going to start to fill. And this is a reminder not only to yourself, but to your students as to what's on the horizon. Up here at the top, you may notice that there is a special code that allows the students to join your class. They have to know this code in order to get in. So one of the very first communications that you're going to have this school year is, hey, I'm so-and-so, welcome back. Please join my Google Classroom at, and you give them the code, whatever that may be. Then they will follow the same steps that you did at the beginning of our session. Google.com, Google Classroom, join a class. That's it, they're in. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark that down. You will always have access to the class code here on the main page. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next major place that we're going to be visiting, Classwork. I mean, come on, that's the bread and butter, right? As we stare at our options here, if anyone had any questions about the stream, which will be a log of everything that we're adding inside of our course, go ahead and feel free to ask away inside of the chat. I would love to hear from you. So we need to add some coursework, right? So let's go ahead and do so. I'm going to click Create. Now, the primary things that you have to choose from are obviously an assignment. So you need them to do something and turn something back into you. Some type of an assessment. It could be formative. It could be summative. That's up to you. Just maybe a question of the day. This could make for a really good entry ticket, as it were, or an exit ticket, as it were. Or material. You just want them to have a resource at hand that is likely to be referenced in several of your assignments. And I'm going to show you a completed version of that here in a little bit. Or you've been making all of these delightful posts in one of your classrooms, but for some reason did not post it here. You can reuse anything you posted anywhere else inside of Google Classroom for this class to consume right now. Or maybe you have a particular type of assignment that repeats. This is a way for you to make it repeat. So let's go ahead and create an assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. Notice the interface is very straightforward. Think of this as kind of setting up the gradebook. So we need an assignment. We need something for them to do. So I'm going to have them practice naming fractions. Told you, math. We're going to butcher you today. We're going to tell all the fraction lies. Then we need instructions. We need something for them to actually be doing. So I know that I'm going to be attaching resources from Khan Academy, and I'm going to be attaching a PDF. So I'm going to have them watch the video, then complete the handout on a Google Doc. So we're giving them those straightforward instructions. Now I need to give them the resources that they will need to succeed, right? Or the things that I want them to turn in. So let's go ahead and click Add. I'm going to add a link. Now the link that I'm going to be adding is actually from Khan Academy. So let's go ahead and grab that real fast. Bam, bam, there we are. Don't worry. All I did is I opened up a browser or a tab so that I could grab my link and then add that in. So go ahead and close that back up. I've added my link, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Notice it figured out automatically, oh, this is from Khan. I got it. And I'm going to add the PDF that I want them to be staring at. So let's see, we'll do that one. Now here's the fun thing. Whenever you add a file of any kind, it could be a Google Doc or it could be a PDF, be whatever you want. You get quite a few options on the way in which you share this with your classes. Students can view the original file but not touch it. Students are allowed to collaborate on the original file itself. Beware, they're all collaborating on the single file, and that may not be what you want. But what's really cool is, no more lines at the copy machine. I can create copies for the entire class. So if this was an editable document in some way, if this was a Google Doc where I had already pre-filled it out with my questions and I have places for them to fill in for solutions, and I need them to be able to edit that alone, not as a group, I would make copies for each and every student. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And what's really cool is as students are added into your class, this will automatically trigger for all new students. So they will automatically get a copy of this assignment, which is really cool. And they'll get a copy of that handout. Now, let's talk about the nitty-gritty of the assignment. Who is this for? Well, I'm going to make this for periods 2 and 3. Saving 1 is kind of an example one. So we're going to just leave period 1 alone for now. If there were particular students already enrolled in these classes, I could then make this a small group assignment rather than whole group. How many points is this assignment going to be? I could make it ungraded, or I can assign pretty much any point value that I want. And for now, I will assign 10 points to Gryffindor. Due date. So there could be no due date. Maybe you don't have a time frame that you want them to turn it in. Maybe you do. Maybe this is actually due tomorrow, at the latest possible time, which is 11:59 p.m. Now, I was not being a wizard. The moment I clicked on time, it automatically sets it to 11:59 p.m. and you are allowed to modify it from there. You don't have to type in a time if you just want it to be at the end of the day. Topic. Well, for those of us that teach any subject at all and have various disciplines or domains or chapters within that discipline, and we want to subdivide, we would probably want to divide this by topic so it's easier to search and see. So I'm going to create a topic. Right now, this class doesn't have one because it was freshly created. So let's create a topic. It's allowing me to type, so I'm going to go ahead and do so. This is going to be all about fractions. In a moment, I will show you how to use the rubric, but don't worry, you're in good hands. You create one once, and you can use them forever. That's the game. So now you've got everything set up, and you're ready to assign, right? But notice that there's this little drop-down arrow. You've got a couple of options. So I can assign, I can save, or I can discard. But if there were students already in the room, I could schedule this for a later release. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and click assign because we're just going to practice straightforward mechanics. We need to get you up and rolling on Google Classroom. Later, you can deal with the little nitty-gritty parts as you discover them. And ta-da! Look, there it is. It's all ready to go. If ever you want to manipulate something that you've already created, I would hover over it because you'll notice it turns into a button. And this button gets an ellipse. This is true no matter where you are in Google Classroom. If you click it, you get a couple options. Edit, delete, copy, move up, move down. Well, what's that about? Well, let me jump over to Classroom 1 and show you a little bit more of a completed version of what we've done so far so you can see what that does. So in this stream, I've already had a couple of things happen. This teacher's been very chatty today, as you can see. They've done Throwback Thursday. They've got, even though this is Wednesday, but hey, we're just excited. We've got some assignments rolling, and sure enough, it works just like it did in the other location. If I hover over something and click on the ellipse, I can move stuff around. So maybe in the stream, you want something to go to the top of the stream. But also in Classwork, notice I have a few things that are scheduled for assignment in this work because I had students in the room. But I also have other things that I have created. And the reason you want to get good at this is because this is the order that the student will see it in their own checklist. So if you want them to have access to a series of information, and then a primer question, and then the practice, and then the assessment, you will have to choose to move these around into the desired order yourself. With that being said, let's take a look at some of these other types of assignments that we can create, this other classwork that we can create. I'll start with the con series. So I uploaded a resource of several videos that are part of a series that talk about fractions. But what if I wanted to take a harder look at it? Because this is just a preview, one-click previews. Well, there's a button down here at the bottom that tells me that I can view material. Let's do it. Now, you'll notice everything works like this. What your instructions and your resources were, when it was, who it was, all of that is always at the top. Every single thing that you add into Google Classroom can be pondered and discussed by your class, assuming you have given them permissions to comment on topics that you have created. It is as simple as a question we never want to ask, right? But any questions? But just for the sake of argument, I'm going to add this really quick. I would want to do something a little bit more probing. But now I need a student to reply back to this. All right, so this might be a really good way to start showing a little peek of what it looks like on the student side. So I'm going to bring my student over who has already joined my class. I am going to choose Classwork. And look at that. There's a notification that a comment has occurred inside of the stream. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. There's that comment, and you'll notice the moment that the student hovers over it, they have immediate access. Click. They see the string of comments. Cutting a triangle into 4 parts is just mean. And that really happens in one of the videos. I'm just letting you know. So they've added a comment back to me. This wasn't a reply exactly. We're talking about the resource, but the conversation continues. And in short order, usually within a couple of seconds, it will update it and add the comment down below. If you don't see the update immediately, you can see it refreshed on its own before I was even able to click anything. It's almost instantaneous, but it's not instantaneous. But notice the power of the teacher kicks in. Anytime a student chit-chats on comment boards, you are able to reply to their comment. And by clicking the reply button, anytime you see that backwards arrow, that return key arrow next to a student, it will automatically load in their @. In this case, it's a plus. It's a holdover from an older Google system. And I'm going to be like, I know, right? And now I've responded back to them. Now, the good news is they do not have to have their eyes just drilled in on this part of my classroom. They're also receiving email notifications that I'm talking with them. So they cannot get out of it that I am speaking with these people. Now, if the assignment was incomplete or this resource needs to be added to, because maybe as we go, we're going to continue adding to the fraction series, find the ellipse. Anytime you want to manipulate anything inside of Google Classroom, find the ellipse. Click edit. Now, while I'm staring at this, I want you to go ahead and go into chat. Tell me one thing that you would like to add. Like, what's a resource that you would want to add into your first Google class? Like something where you know it's a great resource. The students are going to need it. They're going to need it a lot. See, look at that. They're going to need it a whole bunch. And you know that this is probably one of the first resources that you're going to be adding in. I did a video series from Khan, but that does not have to be the only thing. The whole world, the whole World Wide Web is your oyster. What would be the first resource, like the first collection of resources you would want to add to your classroom? Take a moment, ponder. While we're scanning over, looking at this, I'd love to see it. Go Math course. Yes, that would be a fantastic one to add. This is going to be great. Think of this as your library. Anytime you add a resource, you're adding books to your library. So I get to head the series, tell them what it's about, and then add anything I believe would be a useful resource within this category. I can also make this available to the whole class or to certain students. We know remediation is going to be huge. There's going to be things that some students need that others don't. So if you need to add a resource that's going to give that boost of extra understanding or applicability to another student, please use the for. Also, it can be topic. Yeah, yes, Art 21, definitely. Yes, all right. So we've got that taken care of. X's mean exactly what you think they mean. It helps me to delete resources. I can continue adding resources, or I can make up new ones. My recommendation is you already have things pre-created in Google Drive or links that you already know about them, and you just add the resource when the time comes. Creating here is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you may want more time to kind of think out what the worksheet's going to look like, or what the instruction sheet's going to look like, or whatever have you, or the drawing or the form. So I would just say, start that process elsewhere. You can start it here. There's no harm in it. So if I made any changes, I would have to click save. I'm going to do so anyway. So let's go ahead and save the series. Now you may be like, well, how do I get back to anything? Don't worry, Dorothy, I got you covered. Anytime you need to click your heels and get out of wherever you are, you have 2 places to go. The home for class or the home as the teacher. So if I were to click period 1 math, that will take me back to the stream for this one class. However, if you click on the triple lines, the hamburger looking menu, this will take you to everything that you are responsible for as the teacher or as the student, all of the classes that you're taking. And then you can go to wherever you would like. Now, as you continue adding classwork, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of my other examples. Because the process of adding them is incredibly similar, I only needed to really show you one, and that will really get you rolling. So let's go ahead and take a look at the question. So with this one, I typed a question and I gave them some possible choices. I even gave them a resource. I get reminded as the teacher How many of these have I assessed? How many of them still need to see? How many of them need my eyes? If we needed to take a harder look at this, we just clicked on the ellipse and edit, sure enough. And this was the interface. This is how it looked. So I imagine, and I look at this, I'm like, oh man, no, this is really good because this is something extra. This is something that they would want to see how to do themselves with me. So I'm going to hop back over to Classroom 3 and we're going to create one. So I'm going to go ahead and create a question. Now, this is not a pre-graded thing. Google Forms can pre-grade, but everything else within Google Classroom, there is no pre-grading. You'll have to manually grade yourself. Just bear that in mind. Questions are exactly what they sound like. It's one tiny little formative check to see where your classroom is. That's it. So if maybe, you know, for the art teacher among us, the last time they went to the museum, what was the last piece they saw? And they're going to be like, stuff. No. We'll go to the exhibition that they would looked at and pick some pieces out. So at least we can help, you know, regenerate their memory. Let's just ask something silly. What was the last cartoon you watched? Never something I would actually ask, I mean, unless, you know, we're just trying to engage rapport. But now we have to decide the way in which students are allowed to respond to me. It's either going to be short answer or multiple choice. If you need something more robust, you're going to need Google Forms, not this. So I don't really want to list out options because then I could be here forever. So maybe Jimmy Neutron and, oh, what's another cartoon? Courage. That's starting to show me a little bit, right? But more than likely, this is going to be short answer. So I'm going to move it back to short answer. Same as all other assignments, add, create, who is it targeting, how many points is it worth, when is it due, what topic is it a part of, and we're going to create bonding. We're going to create the bonding topic. And notice, while you're creating a topic, you can, or creating a question rather, you can identify who's allowed to interact. We have global class settings that we'll get to later, but you can also modify those here. Students can reply to each other. Maybe this is supposed to be more of a discussion. So there is no right or wrong answer. This is subjective and they're supposed to debate and discuss this. Or maybe you need to have them be able to modify answers, or maybe they can modify answers, but they can't see other people's answers. So again, you have to think to yourself, how do you want to engage the discourse? Each of these things are interactions. Think of it like that. These are all interactions. How do you want them to interact with you? How do you want them to interact with the material? And how do you want them to interact with each other? So let's go ahead and ask. And there we go. Now we have a list. We have our list is starting up. And this continues. So let's go ahead and create one more thing. I'm going to create a quiz. Dun, dun, dun. Now here's the good news. The moment you create a quiz, a blank Google form is generated, and then you are allowed to craft a self-grading assignment from there. Yay. So let's see, I'm going to take a look at, I'm going to actually add a quiz that I've already created. So I'm going to add Google Drive. And we are going to add, yep, the naming fractions quiz. Because I want to show you what it looks like. This isn't about Google Forms. This is just, that's a tertiary thing. But we're going to call this 2.1 or 2-1 naming fractions check. All right, time to test your metal against an all-powerful form, of course. Now, I've already told you that this is self-grading, because so normally you wouldn't do this. But what if you needed to add a rubric to an assignment that goes beyond what a form could handle? Let's try adding a rubric. Now I'm going to give you a little something inside of chat. Oh, let me see if I can actually type it into chat, not open it. I'm sharing a resource with you. This is Google's recommended assessment rubric template, and it's self-guiding. So let me now go ahead and hop in and show you what this looks like. Because we're talking about this one thing. We're going to make a copy so that I can show you in real time what's up. All right, so if you open the link that I gave you into chat, you now have the ability to create a rubric. And so I could title it, let's just call it standard, used for all. This would actually be the description of the category. And then you could type the various descriptions. Exceed, oh gosh, Jeffrey can't type, standards, and then so forth and so on. But you notice the moment I started adding, a new box appeared that allows me to add another criteria that I would be assessing. Just to show you what this can look like all the way at the end of the yellow brick road, let me go back to my drive and show you a rubric. Yeah, I needed to show you that. A rubric that's already been filled out. So this is our standard single tier rubric for math. Basically, I'm only assessing on one category, and I renamed the categories. So if you are familiar with sheets, you're going to be in good hands. Sadly, this is not a sheets course, so I'm not going to get too much deeper into how to continue manipulating this, other than to say, if you want to create a rubric, please use the link that I provided you in chat. That is going to be super helpful because it's already set up in a way that Google Classroom can understand. So let's go ahead and head over back to our work. I'm going to create a rubric. I'm going to reuse a rubric, and it's going to take a look at all the classes that I teach. And it just so happens I already did a rubric once in another class, and I want to use the same one. So I'm going to select it as my rubric. Don't reinvent the wheel, guys. Once you do it once in Google Classroom, you're going to be in pretty good hands. You're going to be able to repeat yourself. One moment as I refresh. See, all better. So we've got that rubric locked and loaded. You could have created the rubric from scratch. I recommend creating it as a sheet and loading it in because you know the types of assignments that you run may need different rubrics. Create them in another way. So due date is going to be tomorrow at the end, and the topic is still in fractions, and this one's going to be worth 100 points. I'm going to share this with periods 2 and 3, and we're going to go ahead and assign. I know this is the speed of light, but don't worry. We just want to make sure that you can get kickstarted on a few of these key things that are in your room. All right, so we got that. Let's take a look at interacting. It's students turning stuff in, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pull my student over that's currently in period 1, and they've got some classwork to take a look at. So they have already completed everything that is in the gray, but they have not completed what is in the pink, and that is something that needs their attention. So a student is going to see all of the work that they have for you, right? Or just like a teacher, they could go to their to-do list and check out all of the stuff that they have to do in every class. And they're getting warnings and reminders about, hey, it's getting kind of close to time. You need to check this off. You need to do this. So I'm going to head back to period 1, back to classwork, and I see that the list is the same thing, right? So let's go ahead and click into it. I'm told I need to finish the series and then return a handout. All right, so I'm going to view this assignment. I am being told as the student how to use this. So I can talk with the teacher or I can talk with the class if it were desired, because this is an assignment that was given to the whole class. There could be group work involved. Google Classroom doesn't know. So how is the student going to handle this? Any assignment that they have to do looks just like this. They're told what it is. They're told how to complete it by you, when it's due, and any resources you assigned. So let's take a look at that resource. Well, it's a PDF. I'm not going to be editing this. So what I probably instructed my students to do was to add and to create a Google Doc. So they're going to go ahead and do that. It creates automatically a Google Doc that is titled exactly the way I would hope to as a teacher. They don't have to title it themselves. It's who they are and what were they completing. So now they would using the worksheet, would start answering. So 1 is A, and 2 is B, 3 is C, so forth and so on. Or maybe there was some short answer and they have to give me a reply, whatever have you, whatever fits the bill for you guys. Now notice, once I've got, thank you, once I've got some things taken care of, I've got this turn in ability. So when I click turn in, this is when the student is electing to lose control over that document, lock away their ability to interact with it so that you have a chance to interact with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it in. All right, and now it's locked unless I wish to unsubmit. They will not be allowed to unsubmit once the due date has passed. It locks them out. But until the due date, it's like they put it in the tray, in the to-do tray, and then they pulled it back out again, made some adjustments and put it back. Especially if you want to do formative assessments with these things, if you want to have an interaction with early birds that turn stuff in very early, this is a great option. They can hear back feedback from you using the comments feature, as we've seen everywhere else. And they're like, oh, maybe I should change something. Pluck it back and try again. But what does this look like on teacher side? So let's go ahead and take a look. I need to go to classroom 1 because that's the classroom that's currently being dealt with. And I see, yep, there we go. Da, 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 da. Let's actually, I want to show you. Let's to review. Ah, there we are. Okay, so we've got the intro. We've got, what's the last cartoon you've been watching? Work in progress. Oh, there it is. 2.1 fraction naming practice once turned in. The end. So that probably needs my attention, wouldn't you say? So I'm going to go ahead and click on turn in. And this brings us to like the second to last major area that the teacher is going to be dealing with. And this is going to be how you grade your work. So you click on the assignment, it brings you here, and notice every assignment is broken into 2 halves. The instructions, which the students see, and then your grade book, which is what you see. And it allows you to go to each student one by one and inspect their work. So I'm going to go ahead and click on their attachments. Yes, thank you. I told you those helpers love to keep popping up. And it's going to look at everything that they turned in. They turned in this document. So I'm going to take a look at their replies. I'm like, yes, yes, of course. I see this. That's just gibberish. So I'm going to, highlight it. There it is. Thank you. It's going to auto suggest you to start giving comments. That is just gibberish and reply. So I'm going to give them some insightful feedback. I've changed some formatting, so that gave them insightful feedback. So they got an 8 out of 10. Just one, just one thing to check. And now I'm going to, once I'm done taking a look at this work, I'm going to post it. I'm going to post my comments, and I feel like I've got this on lock, so I'm going to go ahead and return the work. Yep, I'm going to return it. And turn in, it's always in top right. Anytime you're looking at a document that's part of an assessment or an assignment, it's always in top right. And now it's returned. Now it's back in the student's hands to take a look. So let's pull this back over. As I said, this is not instantaneous every single time. So let's take a look and refresh. Cancel. Yeah, so there it is. I'm getting a notification. This also appeared in my email that this has been graded. And I know that I just got an 8 out of 10 on my work. There it is. I got it. Now, if this is how you roll, because again, depends on what you're trying to do, we have not technically reached the deadline yet. So they could resubmit for a better grade if that is how your school rules or how your class rules work. So I'm just going to go ahead and think that aside. We're going to close this interaction. And let's take a look. And this would be the same for every student that you grade. Okay? And I could also do mass return from this list. There is still one last place we need to visit, which is your actual grade book. So let's click our heels and go to the final one. We have people, but you've already guessed what that is. That's the class. And guess what? That's where you add the co-teacher. You just go to people, you go to that add button next to teachers, click it, and you invite them in. And now you've got 2 teachers in the room. Huzzah. You could also add students manually if you wished. But let's talk about that gradebook. Now this teacher's already been busy, and so is the student. They've been turning in work, and I've got overall reporting coming back to me on every assignment, every question, everything that had a grade assigned to it, and every student that has responded. I know how my class is performing. And I'm also allowed to interact with that grading system right here. Now, you'll have to talk to your school to see whether or not if it hooks into your grade book. It may not. I can't answer that. You'll have to talk to your school for that kind of interactivity. And I know that was a question already on our minds. I already know. Okay. Whew. We made it. We took a look at the major highlights of what is Google Classroom. Only one exception, how to change some switches. But before we do that, I want to hear some questions. What are some of the big questions that are already starting to form in our mind, if any, about the 4 major places that we visited: the stream, classroom, and the assignments within, people, and grades? Are there any bubbling questions that are coming to our mind before I show you the final little switches and knobs that we can turn and we're gonna get out of this joint and start creating our own classes? Is there a way to see at a high level a summary that shows how many classes are offered and how many students are enrolled? That would be part of admin, and that's something that you'll need to talk to your tech administrators about. My understanding is that there is, but this is specifically targeting teacher level, which all you can see at teacher level are the classes that you control. You aren't going to see school-wide. It's a good question, Nancy. You're very welcome. I knew I was going to have an administrator in here, and I was like, oh no. A Meet lesson and recorded it, quickest way to link it. Yeah, so that's actually really good. So anything that, like, I'm actually going to head back to Google Calendar for this. So if I'm under Classwork, one of the hidden little features is you can access the calendar from here. And you'll notice that this teacher has breakout sessions where they meet up every once in a while. So I'm going to go ahead and, yes, thank you, I got it. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into here. So I did not earlier add this, but now I can add Google Meet. And this can be linked. So I would use links by copying and pasting. I know that was the long way to get around to answering your question. But sadly, as you've already noticed, Michael, every single create that I have does not have that as an option, but it can link to Drive. Synchronous, yes, it is synchronous. Basically, it's like this. It's this call. Google Meet is Zoom for Google. It's simpler. It's more simplified. There are fewer interactions, fewer knobs. But yes, you're very welcome. Yeah, they're getting there. Google Classroom over the past several years, because I've been working with it since it first rolled out, has come a long way. It has come a long way, but it still has places to go. And Google Meet is very fresh. So I imagine that they'll have more connectivity as the school year progresses. Other questions? This is good. This is really good. All right, while we wait for those last questions, let me show you the last few knobs you get to play with as the teacher and as the student. So let's go to settings. We know that the Sprocket always means settings, right? Can you? Yes, but can they play here? No. It is not that advanced. I'm so sorry. I know. So they're asking if SCORM files can be played. Those are the kinds of files that you create in like an e-learning editor. And the short answer is it's not like Schoology. I'm sorry. They may make that functionality in the future, but not today, or at least not to my knowledge. Thanks, Nancy. But that doesn't mean you can't link them to somewhere else where it does have that capability. Yeah, this is LMS Lite. This is LMS Lite for sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk the Sprocket for both sides, because the student Sprocket is very simple. So let's talk teacher. Everything that you typed when you created your class can always be edited. The code can be altered. You can display, copy, change it, get rid of it. So maybe the classroom is now, everything is set. Oh my gosh, everything is set. I have students transitioning in 150 days out of my 180-day year. I would never disable it. I always am going to have more students, so don't disable it. This is also where you control their chat information. So if you want students to be able to announce things to the class, as I eyeball all of you, you have the top one selected. If you only want them to be able to reply to things that you have posted, it's the second one. And if you need them to remain mum, you shut it all down. Deleted items. Students have the ability to delete, in air quotes, anything that they interact with, but that little toggle allows you to continue seeing it even after they have deleted it. So you may want to remind them there is no such thing as the delete button inside of Google Classroom. It says delete, but all it's doing is hiding it from their view. Grading. This just allows you to modify the gradebook just a little bit. Total points, weighting, just little tiny things. And then do you want the students to be aware of how they're performing in your class, on or off? That's entirely up to you. Is there a pass fail? No. It's still on a score system. So that would have to be on you to basically how you work the assessments and what you're loading into the scorebook. Sadly, no, it is all numeric in some fashion. Trust me, my elementary specials is coming out, and I know that we need that. That's not immediately present. You have to manipulate the numbers to cause that to happen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and discard my changes. So what does this look like on the student side? Pull it over. They also head back to class. They also get a, let's see, where did my Sprocket go? There it is. The Sprocket is hiding under the hamburger. Of course, Google, you'd put it in 2 places and trip me up. I want to click settings, and you'll notice the only thing they are allowed to control, if the school even allows them this level of control, because remember, every knob that I've touched can be disabled by your school admin. So bear that in mind, is how they are notified about things. My recommendation, don't turn these off. Why would you turn them off? All you're going to do is put yourself into a situation of failure, because you're going to miss the assignment, you're going to miss that insightful comment back from the teacher, you're going to miss the discussion post, and you are literally kicking your legs out from underneath you for turning any of these off. So don't. But that is an administrative setting, not a teacher setting. So that's a conversation to have with your admin. That is not something that the teacher will be able to alter. Please get comfy with the to-dos for the students and the 2 reviews for you. This is my view, by the way. Once I have my classroom set and they're rolling, this is my view, because it's all of my classes and it's showing me what work I have left to do until I have to start building again. This is my view, and this has got to be, this is the best place to leave us off. With only a few minutes left to go, once your classrooms are set, once you have your assignments and your rubric and your students and all of that, once you have all of this loaded and you're ready to rock and roll, this is the view that you're going to be staying on a lot, because it shows you what you've got to do, what your next steps are, who you need to grade or discuss or chat, all of that. Is there a way to share a direct enrollment link? The only share, there are 2 shares for how to get into a class. There are only 2. You either have them type this in. So for instance, I go to my classes as a student, I go plus, and I go to join a class. I now need to input the code that was provided to me by the teacher. Now, how the teacher provided to me, that's up to you. You can email it, put it in a Google Doc, you can mail it to them, you have it on the radio, whatever you want, but that's the way in. The only other way in is the manual process on the teacher side, where they're going to have to go to people and add in. And to answer the question ahead of the question, yes, administrators can do the same thing. You can manually add to people within your school, of course. There is, if I recall this correctly, so if this is an admin question, there should be a way to do an import export from the school's student roster, whatever program you're using for the roster, to bring in an original load into the school. That is beyond what we are going to be talking about today. Sorry. This is just targeting the teacher very specifically. But yes, on admin side, there should be a way. There is a way, I clarify. At least there was the last time I checked. There are special files that you can export out of your whatever system that you use to hold the school, like your school roster. And then you can import that into Google Classroom. But I cannot speak to that path because that is not the path that I normally walk. So I hope that helps in a weird way. Basically talk to admin. We made it. I think I see. Yeah, on admin side, you have a lot more things that you can see that the teacher side cannot see. Just bar none. You've got a lot more bells and whistles and bobs that you can twist than the teacher side can. But from teacher side, this is all I can do. Those are my only two options. Students have to add themselves, or the teacher has to add them manually. It's only from the administrative side that we'd be able to explore a third option. Guys, we made it. We made it. We made it. Please let me know in chat, how comfortable are we feeling? Are we ready to start chewing and making our own classes and just getting some basic walls up inside of our classroom in Google Classroom for when our students return, or as our students need to start interacting with us? How comfortable are we feeling? Or do we know more? Does this feel better? I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear. Miss Reed, thank you. Great. Thank you, Miss Smith. Thank you, Nancy. I'm super glad. We do still have a few moments. If there are still some questions lingering in your mind, I would love to answer them. Like, what does that funny button do? It goes to your gradebook. But yeah, it's an hour primer. So I make it so. Thank you, Captain. Thank you so much to all of you. Yes, cool beans, Michael. I'm so glad. There's still so much. They change it so much. Google Classroom has been night and day for me over the past several years, because every so often they make new additions, or they make changes, or they streamline. And I still feel like every time they make a tweak, I'm learning parts of the system again. But it's not an overhaul. It's not like I'm learning the whole thing again. It's this new thing, or this new button, or this new knob I can twist. So I hope you enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for all of you joining me. I really appreciated it. Lee, if there's anything that you would like to take care of or address the group with, it looks like we're about out of time.
No, I'd just like to say thank you again for everyone for coming out today. I know personally, I'm not a teacher, but it was very informative. I felt like I learned something and could probably tackle a classroom myself. But thank you again. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to training@tcworkshop.com. So, as you are building your classroom, and if anything pops out to you, feel free to reach out, and we'd be happy to help.
And on that note, we're going to go ahead and close our session for the day. I hope all of you take care. Best of luck. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes,
we appreciate it.